Good morning and half a day. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
You know, I apologize. It is so early here. It is 5:16 a.m. So I had to come early just for you folks. So, in our island, we say half a day. And certainly I'm very excited to be here with you. So I apologize for not, I hope I'm not going to monopolize this whole section because I know there are others on this panel as well. So I will go ahead and start if I may. And I just wanted to be able to take this opportunity. Yes, I know the task is to talk about Micronesia, but I will best be able to talk to you about my island and the people from Micronesia who come here. So what better way to do it than through pictures, right? So let me take you on a virtual tour of my island, if I may share my screen with you. Okay, I hope you see that my first slide. Yes, Guam, we say our motto is, it is where America's day begins. Not only is it 5 a.m. in the morning, it is also a Saturday morning to you all. So we are ahead, and if you want me to tell you what your future is, we always start out with a bright day, right? So I am the executive director for the Guam Coalition Against Sexual Assault and Family Violence. I've been here for the past, 10 years now. Prior to that, though, I lived in Hawaii for 30 years. And prior to that, of course, I was born and raised here on Guam. Guam is my home. I am Filipino by ethnicity, but I am Guamanian by birth. So of course, I come here to speak about my island, my people, and of course how we are. And in order to be able to do that, let me see if I can navigate through this one too. So we start out first, of course, with our half a day. As my colleague and ally, Alu Iuli will always say, you know, how she paddles from one island to the islands. We also have our canoes here. But unlike our ancestors way before my time, of course, we will not need to travel by stars as we go virtually through the other islands. So come on our canoe and ride with me. Welcome to the island of Guam. But first of all, in order to begin to understand who we are, we should start out with knowing where we come from. So through nostalgic old movies, we hear about the South Pacific. Guam is actually located in the North Pacific in the same time zone as Australia. So with the Guam Coalition, in our efforts to better understand our local residents who come from around the region, we sought opportunities to reach out to our partners in the region to focus on addressing sexual assault and domestic violence. So through the years, the Guam Coalition has worked with several and many Asian Pacific Island communities on Guam, and we recognize the challenges and the barriers, such as no language or word for rape, no law against sexual assault and domestic violence, and if there is a law, there's no enforcement. And if there's a victim in need of services, certainly resources are limited or inadequate. So this is what we find here within the region of Micronesia. So let me start out with, you see that area marked in red, we are the Micronesian islands. But another way of looking at us is if we had to superimpose our islands across the map of the United States, you will see that we certainly encompass all the way from east to west. And even then again, many of our islands do not fit within this map. So we actually cover 2.5 million square miles of neighborhood, ocean and islands, and across 5 different time zones. So can you imagine when we need to connect with our neighbor islands in the region, it is quite a task just trying to make sure we are all on the same page and trying to figure out, okay, which day it is and who's ahead or behind us in time. So let me start with our neighboring island is the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. So here we have Saipan, Tinian, and Rota, and it is actually comprised of 14 islands, with many of the islanders living on the island of Saipan. The population there is approximately about 51,000. But before the arrival of the Spanish expedition to the shores of the Mariana Islands, there were probably tens of thousands, maybe 50,000 native Chamorros, the indigenous people of these islands. However, by the 18th century, that had been drastically reduced to probably about 1,000 due to the introduction of new diseases to the islands. So during the Spanish-American War, Spain ceded Guam. Remember now, Guam was part of the Mariana Islands, but under Spain rule, we were ceded to the US, and they retained the rest of the Northern Mariana Islands under its rule. So we were one people, now divided under two flags. So here is another picture of our island. Guam is actually the westernmost US territory. Yes, we were ceded to the US by Spain in 1898. We were captured by the Japanese in 1941, and then we were retaken by the US 3 years later. So the military installations on the island are some of the most strategically important US bases in the Pacific, as they also constitute the island's most important source of income and economic stability. So no doubt you may have heard that we're on the radar with China and Korea, of course. So as they take their aim to the US, what they're actually aiming for is the closest US land, and that is our island of Guam. We are the largest and southernmost island in the Mariana Islands archipelago. We are the largest island in Micronesia, and we are also the largest island among the Pacific territories. So if you're familiar with the Golden Gate Bridge, look out and you can imagine our island, our entire island, nicely fitting snugly in San Francisco Bay. So that is our island, 212 square miles. At its longest, we are 31 miles, and at its narrowest, 4 to 8 miles wide. So here's another map, and I also want to thank the Guam Visitors Bureau for allowing me to use some of their pictures of our islands in this presentation. But if you will see the pink shaded areas on this map, that only presents then our military areas here on our island. Compared to other states and territories, I'm sure no other place has this. When we talk about Black Lives Movement in our islands, that issue looks very different for us. And though we do have discussions on this on our island, BLM translates to more systems, governmental issues, rather than racism. Here, racism occurs among people of color as well. Anti-oppression work may also take decades to peel off the layers of centuries-old colonization from Spain, from Spanish to Japanese, and then to American rule on Guam. And then coupled with the relationship of other islands, of other rules from different governments over time. So land is an integral part to our island culture, and the sustainability of a people, a generation, yet as small as our island is, and with 2/3 of the land belonging to governments, restricted access to land is, I would say, trauma-inducing. So let me take you around to visit our islands. And from here, you will see, you may find that you come on our island, bull cart trails and gravel roads to up to 6-lane roads winding through the mountains and through the hills in Central Island, in the central part of our island, to that seemingly very long, nearly deserted 1-mile stretch at Guam's maximum speed of 35 miles. Sometimes that's how we roll. And at times that's how we work, unfortunately. And especially now with COVID and with shelter in place and our lockdown, many long to just cruise at our 35-mile-per-hour speed limit. And for those who have visited, you will know what I mean. So here we have a picture of where Guam's Magahaga, our governor, rules, and that is in Adelup. And in the lower picture, we have the cathedral. With majority of Guam's residents as Catholics, estimating about 85% of our population, there comes the great area of division between church and state. The Archdiocese of Agana is located in, again, central, nearby where our Magahaga rules. Okay. With the majority of Guam's faithful as Catholics, the Archdiocese was expanded and consists of the Archdiocese of Agana, the Diocese of Chalancanoa on the Northern Mariana Islands, the Caroline Islands with the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands as well. So at the center of the island's faithful is the devotion to Guam's patroness, Santa Maria and Carmelin. So however, the Catholic Church has, not just because of the pandemic, but suffered financially recently due to settlements to nearly 300 cases of sexual abuse by clergy against the Archdiocese of Agana. So here still in central part of our island is Hagåtña. This is actually the resting place of the debris from the mass village cleanup of homes and buildings destroyed during World War II. This reclaimed land, actually known as the Plaza de España, has at the tip of the island the replica of the Statue of Liberty, a gift from the Boy Scouts of America. Throughout the island, you can find images of our past. Villages are fully steeped in the history of the people and culture and reflects more similarities to other cultures in the region. The latte stones are found throughout the Mariana Islands, and these serve as the foundations to A-frame homes that were built above these structures. This also signifies how island culture serves as a strong foundation for the people. Another significant area, and I shared this with you because these are all parts of our island that have stories of our island's people. Here is Asan Beach Park in central Guam. Much of Guam's history happened here. During the Spanish rule in Guam, this served as the leper colony until it was destroyed by a typhoon. It then was a prison camp to house Filipino activists exiled on Guam because of their opposition to US rule in the Philippines. In 1931, the island was demilitarized, then Japan took over. In 1944, this was the site of the landing of the US Marines, and with the Army and Navy liberated Guam from the invasion of Japan. For many years, this was the site of Quonset huts and military barracks until the fall of Saigon in 1975, and this site was transformed into a Vietnamese refugee center where 111,000 refugees were processed. In 1976, a super typhoon cleared this area, and this is the park that now holds the history of Guams Past. I'll quickly cover more of our island as we go quickly through. So here is much of our island south, where many of our villages are, and this is where supposedly Magellan landed. So stories are told of the hospitality of the Chamorros and how they felt that they were welcome. And in exchange to enjoy the new gadgets on Magellan's ships, hence he soon referred to Guam as Islas de Ladrones, Isle of Thieves. So indeed, since Magellan's landing on our island, there was much communication as to what we were able to obtain and have access to. So now we head north quickly, and you will see a stark difference in our villages. There's lots of green, lush land and blue ocean, much like the south. Here is an aerial view, and much you will see the difference. We have a different type of jungle here. We have our concrete jungle, and the northern part of the island actually is where nearly 2/3 of our island population live. And here is our island's hotel row. Pre-COVID, this once was bustling with tourists all over the island. So as you can see, tourism and militaryism are Guam's two main source of revenues, the major industries that fuel our economy pre-COVID for the most part. These are the faces of our people. And as we've learned through our work in the Pacific region, in order to be able to address sexual assault, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and human trafficking, we needed to bring all of our partners to the table to attend training and, more importantly, to come together face to face. So here in this picture, we brought folks from American Samoa, from Folau, from Guam, from Chuuk, Pohnpei, Majuro, Saipan, and then too, now that we have this pandemic, we struggle in that regard in being able to come together. And if you're not able to come together, we actually brought training to the neighbor islands. And in the bottom picture, we even brought our training partners to Majuro with us to conduct training on those islands. So given this pandemic, we are unable to meet face to face, and we do have many of our virtual gatherings, and we no longer have to figure out the flight schedules from island to island, and oftentimes trying to figure out what days they go. And so communicating with our islands have become virtual and have provided us the opportunity to continue to connect. We recognize too that the key to building relationships is engaging with our partners with training, recognizing their leadership and their expertise and sharing their knowledge from their respective communities, and collaborating on solutions to address our islands in a larger coordinated regional community effort. So that starts with identifying what the issues are and the possible solutions. One size does not fit all, and oftentimes mainland culture does not always fit. So secondly, we found in coming together that training, and more training is needed. Too often, as we see the residual funding coming to our shores, many times that does not, the funds that we do receive do not allow for training, let alone for awareness. So though we speak many languages, often the languages spoken have no words to describe sexual and domestic violence, as I earlier stated. So we need to reach for the emotional impact that translates through all our languages. So lifting our voices to safe, healthy, and violence-free island communities. So we recently had a Pacific Regional Summit. And so we did recognize emerging issues such as policy, or more of the lack of policy, and resources, or more of the need for more. We also recognize important concerns percolating beneath the shores, such as human trafficking, for examples. We process our collective understanding, yet we also recognize that we could also count the number of agencies on our fingers. We also realize that we have much in common. We are more similar than we are different. We celebrate the similarities and honor our diversity. And so we concluded with many agreements that we continue to build the net, the taladza, how we call the net, that we cast across the Pacific to strengthen our collaborations. And then we return to our respective communities to strengthen them as well. So now with this pandemic, we continue to do the work, but we pretty much taking it virtual. We've gone to the streets literally. And then of course, we've gone through the support of cyberspace to be able to connect. We paddle to our golden sunset, and in our time zone, we predict your tomorrow. There is hope, but we need to reimagine how we can continue to do the work. So from the Pacific Islands, given the limited, if not the scarcity of resources, we are resilient, tenacious, and MacGyvers in our own ways. Through the opportunities we've had over the years to build and reach out to our neighbor islands, we are building bridges, canoes and fishing nets. And oftentimes, we are also planting coconut trees and papayas and breadfruit. So as our ancestors have done in the past, we frequently travel from island to island, maybe not as frequently now, because travel between the islands is not quite often as they used to be, but our people still travel. And now we continue to build the bridge to shelter or to counseling, or that canoe to respite or to support groups, or the fishing net to gather our services to meet the needs of our people. Not everyone needs a bridge or canoe. Sometimes what they need is a breadfruit. So on that note, I just wanted to give you a perspective of our islands. And in the many language that we speak, even here on our island of Guam, we all say thank you. So on that note, I'll just entertain questions. And I just wanted to give you a preview of where we're at and what we're doing. And yes, we are actually in peak core 1, which is the pandemic. Oh my gosh, I say it so often. Uh, it is our system of determining the case, and we've had quite an increasing number of cases here on our island. We are sheltering in place. We are locked down, and if you want to come visit us, just be prepared to be locked down for 14 days in a beautiful hotel. You know, but I'm pretty sure that it's the same too in other areas.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for that presentation. I would love to get locked down in Micronesia right now for 14 days. I'm not going to lie. But thank you so much for setting context. I think it's so helpful for even us Polynesians to really have a deeper insight into our family in Guam. So thank you so much. I'm now going to turn the time over to Melsihna, our Folau, who's also going to do presentation for us for Micronesia. Thank you so much. And then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you so much, Melissa, and si Diyos Masi, Cynthia, for the nice presentation. I appreciate that. Just to introduce myself, I'm Melsihna, and I'm not a health expert, social nurse, doctor. I'm actually a teacher here, right here in Utah, Rose Park area, and I am currently the chair for and the founder for the United Micronesian Women that we started for the newcomers of the Micronesian recent Micronesian immigrants. So I appreciate Cynthia for giving you guys that history because we're here in Utah. I love the unity that Cynthia has created. I just want to give you guys a sort of a quick, can everybody see my screen? Okay,
yes.
Just a quick, I'm Pohnpeian, so I appreciate it when people don't come and ask me if I speak Marshallese because I'm Pohnpeian and our greeting is Kasalelia. We are one region, but we're not a monolithic group. We are very diverse. Just to give you an idea where we are, we're right there, like Cynthia mentioned, and to give you a sort of a historical governmental view that still exists today. I mean, the Mariana Islands are totally diverse. Caroline Islands ranges from Pohnpei to Folau. Marshall Islands are 2 archipelago groups, which is made out of about 2,000 atolls. Kiribati Islands are, British, or once British colonized, and Nauru. So there's a lot of diversity among our one region. Over here in Utah, we have all the groups represented. There's Guamanians, Chamorro from Guam, Saipan and Rota. There's people from the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Kiribati. Not a lot of Nauruans, but there are Palauans, and then a lot of us from the Federal States of Micronesia. Just to give you guys a history of why we're so diverse, we were like a lot of the islands here in the Micronesian Islands and in the Pacific, we were subjugated to different foreign powers, you might call it. Spain from 1565 to 1898, Germany 1898 to 1907, Japan, like Cynthia mentioned, 1907 to 1945, and then recently United States after the war, or Second World War, till 1986, which is most of them were already born and in college at those time. But that's just what I want to share with you guys. And like Cynthia said, we'll open up to questions. The reason why I want to give you guys our history is as a healthcare workers and you approach a Micronesian, be sensitive that we're not a monolithic group. And we have, some of us are very culturally protocoled, and some of us, you know, like whatever comes. And so I just want to open that up to you and be aware when you approach a Micronesian. So thank you very much. And again, Citrus Masi, Cynthia, and have a day. Kaselelia to everyone. And that's it. That's my presentation.
Thank you so much. I do want to open it up to our participants. If they have any questions or anybody needs some clarification in terms of the presentations from our Micronesian community. You can also use chat if you'd like, and I can go ahead and read off the questions.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa.
Sure. Okay. I guess everybody's an expert now. No, I'm kidding. Well, I will leave. Of course, the chat is available. Melsihna, if you can please put your information into our chat, should anyone, especially locally in Utah, have any questions or need some support in outreach. Cynthia, I know that you're all the way there in Wuhan, but if you can also put your information in the chat, we definitely want to continue building these canoes and bridges so that we can all stay connected via ocean or via ocean cyberspace. So please continue to do that. Oh, we have a question. Suggestions on how we can engage better with the different Micronesian communities. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Thank you. And actually, that's one of the things that we've been doing here on Guam too, is reaching out. And with some of our opportunities, such as access to grants, for example, we've had several opportunities to reach out to our neighboring partners as well. So recently, we were able to do a grant from the Office of Women's Health, in which we were able to work with establishing policies and prevention programming addressing sexual assaults on campus. So of course, the prerequisite was that we had to, this is our federal government, right, say, okay, in order to qualify, you need 8 college campuses. And so I looked around and I said, hey, okay, cool, we're gonna do it on Guam. And you know, I could only come up with 4 on our island. I needed 8. So then I reached out and I said, okay, CNMI, how many colleges do you have who can be a part of this project, and will you help us? Well, they were able to come up with 2 more, and we still were short of the 8 that we required. So I figured I'd reach way across the Pacific to American Samoa, and we were able to get 1 from there, and we were still short of the 8. So through our connects here on our island, we reached out to Folau, to Federated States of Micronesia, as well as to Marshall Islands. So we were able to engage those college campuses there to participate. So that's how we were able to spread this wide net across the Pacific, and how we were able to support their efforts. So of course, early on, we knew it wasn't, again, we didn't want to come with our ways, and this is how we do it on Guam, and this is how you should do it, right? So actually, we looked at it from a policy perspective, and that's how we recognize the differences or the lack of laws, perhaps, in being able to address sexual assault on their campuses. So with this, we were able to build, and that's how we were able to build our relationships with the different communities. So with reaching the Micronesian population, we needed to go to where they came from, because we knew that with the Compact of freely associated states that is currently in place, Micronesians can travel with their island's passport to anywhere in the U.S. With the opportunities of obtaining education uh, for their health, as well as for betterment and for employment purposes. So of course, Guam is closest to many of our islands in the region. And then there are those that travel all the way to Utah where you are. So our way of reaching out to them is actually through engaging with their leaders and looking at how we can support with the resources that we have for them. And I know one of the things too in working with Micronesians in your areas, we have been able to provide, for example, interpretation or interpretation services. And now that everything's gone virtual, it is something that is readily available and accessible. So that is the kind of support that we're able to link up or provide to our region as well. So those kinds of opportunities with the training and being able to provide opportunities for resources to support them in their islands is how we're able to reach out and connect with them as well.
Melsihna, did you want to add to that?
I'm so sorry, Melissa. What was the question that?
Oh, it was just how to better engage the different Micronesian communities.
You know, I can only speak right here in Utah. Right here in Utah, we have different organizations that are already in place and are working very closely as far as grassroots go. There's a Marshallese United Micronesian or Marshallese organization or association that's functioning fine with their groups covering from St. George to Layton. They're very, and then there's a United Pingilapis Pohnpeian organization that's functioning again, also right in Utah all the way. And then there are other smaller groups like the Chukis and the Yapis. Palauans are very, educated academics, but they're not very, there's only a few of them that are here in Utah, but they are not very, how should I say, involved in the Micronesian, but just knowing where to go. And then the problem that we have, and this is just my experience and my notices, is just, even though we have certain groups already established here in Utah, the individuals or some individuals are having a hard time reaching out and asking for help. Because I find Utah to be a very friendly, helpful state, socially, religiously, and even health-wise. They have health programs. The state is willing to help indigenous groups. So we have the resources. But the problem is, again, just reaching out. And like Sister Bala was mentioning before, a lot of us older Micronesians wants to go to these protocols, cultural protocols, and don't understand or don't agree with the younger generation that's sort of running the groups. Like, oh, these kids are so bold or so aggressive or assertive. And it's just, again, like I mentioned, it's just reaching out. But yeah, we do, or I believe we do have the groups here that if you need help, and especially with this pandemic going on, and there's few deaths in our community that's still affecting all of us. I'm sure every community, but I think as far as the organizations, we're set. Just the individuals needs to reach out and ask for their help.
Great. By any chance, do you know what the population of Micronesians are in Salt Lake City County? Would you have
just like I mentioned, the reason why I went ahead and showed that slide for the diversity of our group, because it's easily for the federal states of Micronesia, which is one government in the Micronesian region. There's about, believe it or not, there's close to about over 3,000 of us just right here in the valley. And it's funny because people look at us and don't think we are, but there's so many intercultural marriages, like to Palangis or to other Pacific Islanders. So we're not out there, but you have to look into it. But there's so many Polynesian Tongans, I mean the Micronesian Tongans, Micronesian Samoans, Micronesian Caucasians, Micronesian Mexicans. So yeah, as far as other groups like Chamorro and from Saipan and Guam, North Mariana Islands and Guam and Palau and other groups, I'm not very sure. But as far as the federal states of Micronesia, yeah, there's over 2,500 of us, and there's more around our neighboring states too. But in Utah, that's the amount that we've actually able to count in our activities.
Great, thank you. So we're gonna end with this last question. How are the COFA non-immigrants receiving medical care when they do not qualify for Medicaid?
For Utah, like I mentioned, and that's a very good question, because a lot of people think because we have the right to reside and work and everything that we are eligible for everything, and we are not. We are not citizens. We are legally and rightfully here, you know, historical issues and everything else. But one thing that I found about Utah that's very significant is that there's, again, the church, different churches, and it doesn't need to be the LDS church only, but there are churches around the valley that are willing to help people with their issues, whether it be getting sick with the pandemic or, you know, the increase of violence that all of our communities are facing, not just the Pacific Islanders, but, you know, as a Utah community and, you know, beyond. So we are aware of that. But yeah, just to answer that question, there are other sources out there, again, like I mentioned, and I would really love people to reach out to the United Micronesian website. It's one.org, because we do have resources that we can share. It's just nobody's reaching out to us.
Thank you. Could you put that information in the chat?
I put down one.org, and the reason why I just put that is it's like but we have a W in there, and then the number 1.org. And if you go onto that website and go to contact, there's about 4 people that you can contact, and I'm one of them. And we'll be, you know, happy to tell you how to get it and what applications you need to fill up and such.
Excellent. That's so helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Susie. Thanks, Melissa.
Any other questions? Okay, awesome. So I want to thank you both so much for the presentation on Micronesia. I know I have learned a lot, and I'm so grateful to know that we do have individuals that are supporting the community in Utah, and that there is work being done. So please reach out to these individuals if you need additional support or have any questions regarding their communities.